Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Conjured Cookies by Cindy Stark. Narrated by Tegan Ashton Cohan. 1. From behind closed eyelids, I could see that morning had arrived, but I didn't budge. It was Sunday, the only day of the week I had to sleep in and be lazy, and I intended to take advantage of it. My Aunt Bertie, who now shared a cat's body with her familiar Theodosia, had jumped onto the bed several times already, but I pretended to be asleep. I was certain she wanted breakfast, but she could wait a while longer. I had things to think about, most especially the town's police chief, who was my current source of frustration. Caden's kiss, and the fractured memories it had resurrected, haunted me all night long. Nothing could make me forget the moment right before he'd kissed me, when he'd held my gaze until I'd sensed the connection between us. Our connection, he'd called it. Nor could I deny the terrifyingly strong bond that had burned between us when his lips had touched mine. I didn't know what to do with that knowledge, or the fact that his kiss might unlock all my stolen memories from that summer we'd spent together as teenagers. I blew out a troubled sigh and regretted it the second I heard Bertie galloping down the hall toward the bedroom. I stilled my breaths as much as possible, hoping she'd believe that I'd sighed in my dreams. I needed more quiet time to explore my thoughts and worries. When Bertie jumped onto the mattress, I responded with a slight moan as though I was sound asleep. She meowed, but I didn't move. The soft touch of her paw on my cheek almost got me because it was such a sweet gesture, but I resisted. Bertie crawled onto my chest and settled next to my chin, her soft fur caressing my skin. I peeked open one eye and found that only her fluffy black tail separated her bottom end from my mouth. I pushed her off me as I released an annoyed groan and rolled over. "Can't you let me sleep?" Bertie climbed over me onto my pillow and touched her cold, wet nose against mine. "I've been trying to be patient, but it's almost 9. I'm hungry, Evie." If her black and white furry face and rosy pink nose weren't so cute, and if I didn't love my cat aunt with all my heart, I would have tossed her out of the bedroom and closed the door. But the truth was I loved taking care of her, even if she vexed me sometimes. Besides, closing a door on her would be pointless, since she could use her magic to open it again. If I wanted any peace that morning, it was best if I caved to her demands and greeted the new day. A huge yawn slipped from me as I climbed from the bed. Aunt Bertie scrutinized me with her eerie golden eyes. "How are you feeling today?" I lifted a hand, not wanting to respond, and sauntered down the hall to the kitchen to start coffee. I squinted when I entered the sunny room because the bright light hurt my eyes. Like death warmed over. She bounded ahead of me and leaped onto the counter. "It's all that wine you drank last night. You should have tried my kitty wine instead. Trust me, it doesn't leave you hungover like other alcohol." The idea of drinking watered-down salmon juice infused with catnip made me gag. "Stop." She chuckled and strolled across the counter toward the fridge. "What should we eat?" I followed her. "You know, if you wouldn't walk all over the counters, I wouldn't constantly have to clean them." Bertie stood on her hind legs and pawed at the fridge. "It's fun. You should try it." She whispered a spell, and the fridge door swung open. "We have eggs and milk. Looks like there's still bacon left, too." I nodded woodenly as I pulled the requested items from the shelves and closed the door. Before I began cooking, though, I started the coffee maker. Priorities first. The sounds of percolating coffee filled the air, and the familiar scent alerted my subconscious that it was time to wake up. I pulled the frying pan from beneath the cupboard and began laying slices of bacon in it. As I did, my gaze drifted to the simmering pot of potpourri Bertie and I had crafted nearly a week before, which would protect us in case the person who'd murdered her returned. "Don't let me forget to add moon water to our pot, okay?" Bertie glanced up from the package of bacon she'd been sniffing. "I should refresh our ingredients, too. We'll do that after breakfast." If I hadn't helped her create the concoction, I might have been concerned that it wouldn't be powerful enough to protect us. But my next-door neighbor and fellow witch Gertie had sensed the magic all the way from her house. If it was that strong, I figured we were good. As I whisked the eggs I'd cracked into a bowl, I glanced toward my aunt and found her studying me with an intense look. I smiled, trying to reassure her I was fine. "Aunt Bertie, when I talked to Gertie the other day, she thought you might be strong enough to reverse the memory spell my parents placed on me." Her furry black ears twitched. "No, I don't think so. You know my powers are waning." I gave her a hopeful look. "But if I lend you my power, like I've done in the past, it might." "It's not enough." She jumped from the counter to the floor and trotted toward the table, letting me know she'd said all she would about the topic. If she thought I'd give up that easily, she was wrong. I flipped the bacon and grabbed a smaller frying pan for the eggs. "I still think we should try. What if it could work? You already said I'm stronger than you'd thought I would be. It's worth a shot, isn't it?" She huffed with annoyance. "Is that really what you want to waste your energy on? Don't you think it would be better to use it for things that benefit your future?" Her response echoed what Gertie had told me days before, but neither of them would dissuade me. How can you separate your past from your future? How do you know who you are without knowing where you've been? She dismissed my rationalization with a shake of her head. "You didn't lose all your memories, only those from a few summer months that happened years ago. You know who you are without them." Except I had a feeling that summer had been a pivotal point in my life. "I want to remember, Aunt Bertie. I want to recall my time with you and with Caden." She turned away and licked her paw. "I'm sorry, Evie. If I thought it would work, I'd try, but neither of us is strong enough." I glared at her, even though she wasn't looking, miffed that she wouldn't give us a chance. She'd given me her answer, and there was no point arguing further. If she wouldn't help me, I might have to try kissing Caden again. Unfortunately, that came with a whole host of separate issues. If only my life wasn't so complicated. I withheld an audible sigh and transferred bacon and eggs to my plate, grabbed 2 small crystal saucers, and placed them on the table before I returned for utensils and a large mug of coffee. I cut her breakfast into small bite-sized pieces and slid the saucers to her. She licked a piece of bacon before eating it. "Yummy. Don't forget the milk," she said around a mouthful. I narrowed my gaze, wondering if giving her milk made me a bad pet mom, or if I even was a pet mom. Bertie was my aunt, after all, a sentient human mind sharing a cat's body with her familiar. She'd been 95 when someone had murdered her. That made her a fully grown adult, capable of making her own decisions and taking the consequences along with them. With that thought, I poured milk into her saucer and let her have at it. Besides, drinking milk couldn't be worse than the beer she'd consumed before I'd agreed to buy her kitty wine. I'd just finished my eggs when Bertie gagged, and I turned to her in alarm. Before I could say anything, she convulsed and deposited her entire breakfast back onto the saucer. I covered my mouth and looked away, afraid I'd do the same. She lowered her head and groaned. "Oh, that's not good." Not good indeed. I scooped her and carried her into the living room, away from the mess at the table. As I stood near the window for better lighting, I searched her eyes and her pitiful expression. "You've been off lately. Are you sick? Did you eat something outside that you shouldn't have?" She frowned. "I don't know. I felt fine when we started eating, and then it just hit me." I touched the tip of her nose and found it still cool and wet. "Your inner eyelid isn't out, and you look fine, so that's good." She leaned her head against my hand. "I'm okay. I feel a little better now." It had only been days since she'd fainted, shortly after we'd started a powerful spell. She'd been so lifeless that I'd thought she'd died. Even though she appeared to be okay, my worries hovered near the surface. "Maybe I should take you to the vet." My aunt pushed from me and jumped onto the couch, where she circled and then settled into a ball. "I think I'll be okay. Just let me rest a bit." Since it was Sunday, and I'd planned to spend the day at home, I agreed with a nod. "I'll be here all day to watch you, so you let me know if you feel worse, all right?" She yawned before she tucked her nose into her tail. "I will. Thank you for taking care of me, Evie." I watched her for a few minutes until her breaths became slow and even. Then I headed into the kitchen to clean the mess and do dishes. I'd barely rinsed our plates when a furious knock on my back door startled me. I hurried to open it and found my very short, elderly neighbor standing on the porch, her face as white as a ghost. "What's wrong, Gertie?" The older lady covered her mouth and rapidly blinked away the tears gathering behind her thick glasses. Alarmed, I stepped out and wrapped an arm around her thin shoulders. "Why don't you come inside?" She shrugged off my attempt to comfort her, causing her gray bun to wobble, and she spoke in a ragged voice. "There's been a death, Evie. One of our own." I raised my brows in confusion. "Our own?" "Sybil Gibbons, one of the witches in town. Someone murdered her." 2. I stared into Gertie's teary eyes, stunned at her news about a murdered witch in our community. Aunt Bertie had hinted that other witches lived amongst us in Honeysuckle Springs, but she'd refused to tell me their names. I suspected her reason was another ploy to keep my magic in check and under her control. But things had just changed. Someone was dead. "Sybil? I don't know if I've met her." Gertie's icy fingers quivered as she gripped my hand. "She was young, a little reckless, but she should have had her whole life ahead of her." I placed my available hand on top of hers, sandwiching her fingers, hoping to comfort her. "What happened to her? What makes you think someone murdered her?" Gertie sniffed and waved away my comment. "Let's not talk now. The coven is gathering, and we must go. We can discuss details there." Coven? If I went, this meant I'd finally get to know my counterparts, and I was eager to do so. But I had Bertie to worry about, too. "I'm not sure I can. Bertie's not well this morning." My neighbor scoffed and withdrew her hand. "You mean Theo. When will you get it straight, girl?" I swallowed my uneasiness and cursed my stupidity. If I kept calling my aunt by her name and not her familiar's, it was only a matter of time before someone figured things out. "Of course, Theo. Your news shook me, so I'm not thinking straight." Gertie's gaze slid past me, and she pointed. "Look, there's Theo right now, and she's looking fit as a fiddle, aren't you, kitty?" Bertie strode forward and rubbed against my leg. When I glanced down, I could see concern radiating from her eyes. I wished we could communicate telepathically so that I'd know what she was thinking. Gertie gripped my forearm with more strength than an older lady should have. You have to go. Our kind must stick together at times like these. You may not know it, but they were all there for me and your Aunt Birdie after I discovered her body. Though we don't always get along, the witches in our coven rely on each other in times of need, and unless you want to be ostracized by the whole town, you must be there. And I need you to drive me." She'd left me no choice, and it seemed as if Birdie was feeling better. "Okay, let me get dressed." With a firm nod, Gertie turned from me. 5 minutes. I'll wait in your car." I scrambled toward my bedroom, suddenly wide awake, with Birdie chasing after me. "I'm coming too." I cast her a quick sideways glance as I tugged a shirt from a hanger in my closet and snatched the jeans that I'd worn the previous day. "Are you feeling well enough?" "Yes," she called as she followed me down the hall to the bathroom. I almost squished her with the door when she tried to follow me inside. "A little privacy, please?" She rolled her eyes. "I'm a cat. I don't care what you look like naked." A snort escaped me, and I closed the door. "You're my aunt, and you can wait outside." I spotted one of her white feet pawing beneath the door as I changed clothes. When I emerged, she jumped back. "You're taking me, right?" I scooped her up and headed out in search of my purse. "Yes, you can come, but you need to be extra careful. I'm sure it will be an emotional scene, and you can't let your guard down and accidentally reveal that you're in Theo's body." Her gaze grew serious. "Of course. I would never do such a thing." I tilted my head and eyed her with a look of disagreement. "You did with me, remember?" Birdie was quick to shake her head. "That's different. This is nothing compared to the day you discovered I was in Theo's body." I suppose she had a point. I stepped onto the porch and into the beautiful sunny day and spoke to her in a low voice. "You sit and you listen. That's it." She rubbed her head against me in response. When I opened my car's back door to place my cat aunt inside, Gertie eyed us both. "You're bringing Theo?" I waited until I was in the driver's seat to answer. "It's a coven meeting, isn't it? And she's my familiar. Plus, I want to make sure she's okay." Gertie harumphed as I started the engine and backed out of the driveway. "Do you know where the Gooseberry Cafe is?" she asked. I was fairly certain she referred to the cute cafe on the outskirts of town, near the canyon, that would take me back to Boise, but I wasn't sure how to get there. "Maybe, but you'll have to give me directions." "Get yourself to the main highway and we'll go from there." Not long into the drive, I glanced at her. "Where's Cromwell? I thought you'd bring him too, or is bringing familiars frowned upon by the coven?" She rolled her roomy eyes. "Of course it's not. Cromwell didn't want to come." I lifted my chin to spy on my beautiful black and white kitty sitting properly in the back seat. "Theo insisted on coming. Isn't that right?" Birdie meowed in response. Gertie scrunched her nose and regarded me with an annoyed look. "It seems like you've bonded some recently. I'm surprised she's taken to you so quickly." Earlier, Gertie had complained because I hadn't connected with my supposed familiar, and now she was grumpy because I had? The prickly old woman was hard to please. "Are you saying you haven't connected with Cromwell yet?" She folded her arms. "I didn't say that." Though I kept my focus on the road, I still narrowed my gaze. "No, but you're not denying it either. Is there a problem?" Gertie huffed. "I've spoiled him rotten, with everything I can think of, but he's still distant toward me. How are we supposed to become a pair if he remains that way?" Her comment reminded me of Caden, and that he was probably thinking the same thing about me. "Maybe Cromwell needs a little time. You said he's a used familiar, right? Maybe he's still grieving his previous witch, and You know, you can't force someone to trust you just because you want them to." She grunted. Maybe I shouldn't have bought him on the black market. Miranda told me it would be a mistake. I should have listened." Bertie stood like a meerkat in the back seat, catching my gaze in the rearview mirror, looking concerned. I gave my cat aunt a small nod, letting her know I understood Cromwell was important to her and that I'd have his back. "You haven't had him very long, and when I've seen him around the yard, he seems to like it here. I'm sure with time and love, he'll come around." Gertie shot me an unhappy look and thumbed over her shoulder. "She's the one he likes." I couldn't deny that fact. Doesn't that make it more likely that he'll want to be happy in his new home? Give him time. For now, tell me more about this Sybil person. You said she was young? How young? Gertie's expression saddened as she tilted her head and surveyed me. "I'd say about your age. She's an outsider, too." "Two?" I recalled my friend Chloe and Caden insisting I wasn't an outsider, but obviously not everyone agreed. "When did Sybil move here?" She considered my question and shrugged. "Maybe 12 years ago. She was still in school when her dad married her stepmom and they moved here. It was maybe 5 years after that when her dad died overseas, but Sybil stayed instead of going to her mom's." Gertie released a troubled sigh. "I guess Sybil's with her dad now, isn't she?" Her comment reminded me of losing my parents, and grief sank its claws deep into my heart. "That's awful. Poor lady." She snorted with sarcasm. "You wouldn't say poor lady if you'd met her. Sybil was an unpredictable terror. Hey, turn right at the next corner." I shot my neighbor a sideways look, wondering where she'd left her compassion. "A few minutes ago, you were highly upset over her death." Gertie shook her head. "Not her death. A witch's death. Sybil was a horrible person." Still, a death was a death. I slowed and turned off the highway onto a side street. "Don't you think what happened to Sybil in her childhood might have turned her into a terror?" She scoffed. "You went the wrong way. I said go left." I turned my thoughts to driving and narrowed my gaze. "Pretty sure you said to turn right." She waved her bony fingers at me. "Never mind, it doesn't matter. Just keep going. This road's slower, but it'll get us there." I blinked in frustration, but kept my words in check. "I might agree with what you said if Sybil was still a child," Gertie continued. "But she's had years to grow up, and she chose not to change her ways. Brandy Garreau, you know her, right? She tried to help Sybil, tried to guide her in her magic, but that girl plain didn't care." An image of Brandy, the 50-something dark-haired former beauty queen, popped into my mind. I'd briefly met her when she'd come into the Cookie Corner bakery looking for lemon drop cookies. She'd been aloof and cool with me, not rude, but not warm and open either. Gertie pointed out the front windshield. "There's the cafe up ahead. Looks like most everyone is here. Let's park, and I'll introduce you." 3. When Gertie and I stepped inside the Gooseberry Cafe, the delicious smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls greeted us. Unfortunately, the somber mood permeating the cozy restaurant left the eatery with the ambiance of a rainy day. I stopped just inside the door and lowered my gaze to the fluffy black and white bundle of fur I carried. I shouldn't bring a cat inside. Bertie pressed her claws against my forearm, warning me she wouldn't sit in the car. Luckily, Gertie waved away my concern. "Don't worry about it. We're in a separate section in the back. Trudy's sister-in-law owns the place, and she doesn't care what we do as long as we keep it in the back room. With Bertie's soft body snuggled against me, I worked to tame my nerves that twisted with nervous excitement. The women I was about to meet all possessed magic. Even though I had my own powers, meeting the coven seemed like something pretentious and official. I was such a newbie, and I feared I'd do or say something ridiculous and embarrass myself. Gertie hobbled ahead, leading me to a sectioned-off back area where someone had pushed multiple tables together. Amongst the hanging greenery and various floral pictures that decorated the cafe, I spied pentagrams on objects and a multitude of candles around the room. Telltale signs of witchery. Most of the coven members stood in small groups nearby, speaking in subdued voices. Some held mugs, while others had glasses of orange juice in their hands. I already knew that Miranda, the nosy realtor, and Gertie were witches. On the way over, I'd learned that Brandy was too, so seeing them there didn't surprise me. But I was shocked to find Jenny from the mayor's office and Trudy, who dispatched for the police department, in attendance too. The only witch I didn't recognize was a thin woman near my age, with long dark hair that hung limply over one shoulder, reaching almost to her waist. She didn't look up as Gertie and I approached, but 50-something Trudy, with her fluffy blonde hair curled about her face, leaped to her feet and rushed forward with a flurry of energy. "Evie, what is this? I can't believe you're here. I'd heard you weren't practicing." I awkwardly glanced at the curious faces of the other witches, nodding hello to them before I smiled at Trudy. I wasn't sure how to respond to her statement, much less do so in front of a bunch of people I didn't know well, so I opted to save that conversation for later. Instead, I gave the motherly woman, who was also one of the Cookie Corner's best customers, a quick hug. "It's good to see you, Trudy." She grinned and took Theo from my arms. "Why don't you grab some coffee or juice and make yourself at home? There are muffins and cinnamon rolls, too. Me and this beautiful girl are going to have a seat, and you can join us." I did as she suggested and headed for the carafes of orange juice, though I was certain I wouldn't feel comfortable around the group of fellow witches for some time. At least not that day. Gertie had already joined Miranda and Brandy's conversation, and as I approached the table of beverages next to Brandy, the former beauty queen eyed me warily. She seemed to recognize me and nodded, but the reception I received from her paled compared to Trudy's. Miranda, who I knew much better, gave me a friendly smile, and I returned it, though I still didn't trust her. From where I stood, I couldn't help overhear Gertie speaking. "I'm so sorry for the loss of your girl, Brandy. I know you tried to mother her when her own mom and stepmom wouldn't." The icy witch huffed a breath. She was hardly my girl. Let her stepmother claim her. I winced at the cruel comment as I poured the juice. From the corner of my eye, I saw Miranda nudge Brandy. "Come on now. I know you cared for Sybil. She was hard to handle, but she had a lovable side, too." Brandy sobbed and covered her mouth. Apparently, the Ice Queen had a heart. With a full glass, I stepped to the side several feet and turned, pretending to peruse the baked goods while still being able to keep my eye on the three witches. Gertie patted Brandy on the back as she spoke. "I wish I would have seen that lovable side of her more often." I inwardly gasped at her comment. For all the wisdom that Gertie possessed, she severely lacked manners. Brandy didn't seem offended, though. "You know, I tried so hard to help Sybil with her craft, but she was one of those people who never should have been gifted with magic." Gertie nodded wholeheartedly. "Amen to that. Look, I'm going to grab some grub. We can talk later." My crotchety neighbor joined me at the food table, caught my gaze, and lifted her chin. "Can you believe it? That girl's no longer here, but she's still causing people heartache." I grimaced. I hope nobody talks about me that way when I'm gone. Gertie shrugged and filled a mug with coffee. I'm just telling it like it is. She was, but that didn't mean her callous words were necessary. I opted to skip the muffins.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?